Okay, so the first thing we're going to talk about is the International Search and Rescue Incident Database. So this is a tool that can be used to help in missing person cases and help find missing persons. This tool is a part of a USDA grant and allows for the collection and analysis of search and rescue statistics from around the world. The Isr Id is essentially a form that is filled out by law enforcement agencies, people who have experience with missing person cases or any information about previous missing person cases, and you fill out various information such as all about the person who's missing, the location that they're missing in, sort of geographical locations, weather, elevation, and things like that, and it's put into this database for that geographical region. And essentially, later on, if another person goes missing in that specific area, someone can pull up this information, and it can help them narrow down their search and the area of probability, and cut down on search times and the area that you're searching in, because it essentially predicts the movements of the victim or the missing person and helps the search teams figure out where they're going to go based on the geographical location and their physical characteristics and traits. So the biggest drawback for this resource is that it was really dependent on people filling out the form. So if someone doesn't fill out the form, the database doesn't get bigger and has more information for people to use later on. So essentially, you have to go through the long search process, and you don't have any easy way to cut it back. Another drawback is that pretty much anyone can go on there and fill it out. There's no real way to verify the information, so it can be a lot of false information or not completely correct, so that can affect teams searching for people later on. Other positives of this is that it essentially does help cut back search areas and search times if the information is accurate and it's put in there, because if you have someone who's missing in a certain area in the past and someone else goes missing there again, you have information about that region and you're not going in blind. Despite all that, the reason we're going to use this resource is because it can provide information on patterns and behaviors of previous missing persons in a woodland region and give us information about these regions that can help us narrow down our search area and assist in finding our missing person. Alright, so some of the resources that we're going to be requesting, we're going to want volunteers, we're going to want...
So the probability of direction of travel when a person is missing, the initial planning point is a point used for search planning. The IPP is very often the point at which a person was last seen. Planners usually define the PLS, person last seen, as a person last known point of travel, such as a parking lot, whether they're in the woods. The total search area is designated by a circle in which the likelihood of finding a person in the field is approximately 95%. The circle is not the final frontier of search, but can be further defined based on terrain features, and it should be suitable for a specific exploration scenario. Effects of the terrain can play a role in how far a missing person can travel. If they're traveling on a flat terrain, they can cover more area, as to where someone who's traveling uphill won't cover as much area. Traveling uphill will cause a person to exert more energy. They can become tired easily, and depending on the weather or temperature, if it's super hot, they can become dehydrated, pass out, faint. If it's cold, they can get hypothermia. Elevation change, a technician will compare the recorded initial planning point with the location where the person was last found and determine the elevation difference between these 2 points. By using this method, it distinguishes 3 zones: the distance uphill from the initial planning point, downhill from the initial planning point, and at the same level as the initial planning point. Vertical differences in height are greater in dry domains than in temperate ones. Searching above the IPP is usually associated with an attempt to find telecommunication network coverage. And then the weather, if a missing person who is traveling outdoors faces the risk of having a heat stroke or hypothermia, even with proper clothing, a person out in extremely cold temperatures with no source of heat can and will become hypothermic. Someone who is lost in a location where the temperature is hot, they could have a heat stroke, suffer from dehydration, or faint or pass out. An elderly person that is lost outdoors with both climates could overexert themselves and put too much stress on the heart and could potentially have a heart attack.
Hello. So scenario log is when you have a situation that you're trying to solve, such as the case of the missing Huntress, and you have tried every source that you can and cannot get anywhere. The method for solving this or preventing it is to have as many resources and volunteers as possible. This is what we are going to do for our project, so that will avoid the scenario lock. The way we will deploy these resources and volunteers is that we will have all the resources with us when we are doing the assignment, and we will use volunteers to help search for the missing woman, and we will continue to do that until we find her. An example of this is when you have search teams in a certain group, a certain number of groups, and they're searching the woods for the missing huntress, and they find these clues, and then each clue leads to another clue, which leads to another clue, and so on, until they find the missing woman. This helps with avoiding scenario lock and deploying resources and search teams and volunteers. Here is a clip of what would happen when a missing woman is found, or any missing person. The woman was found in a heavily wooded area in what I can only describe as a storage container that would be on a truck. Here is the container behind me. As you can see, it is dark, and we found the woman here, and she has been helped with new clothes and health care. We believe she may have been possibly raped.